Hello Flosstube, I'm Nicole and this is DDsFlosstube number 25. Hello and welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're a returning subscriber, I really do appreciate you being here every week. And if you're a new subscriber or new to the channel, this video today is all about cross stitch. We are a multi-craft channel, so it's not just cross stitching. We cover sewing, quilting, all sorts of little bits and pieces, and any craft that sort of takes my fancy. I will share my journey with it, especially if it's a new thing that I'm learning, such as a cross stitch. So today we are, as I said, we are just going to be covering all about cross stitch. So for those that are returning, you'll notice that I have gone up on a different day. I've done this because of some scheduling conflicts. I have accountants coming for the next couple of Wednesdays, so that's going to sort of affect my recording time. So I just figured, well, I have Mondays free. Little M's usually home with me. She's in watching TV at the moment, watching Mr. Maker and Bluey. And so she's going to do that, and hopefully she won't disturb us too much. She is known for coming in and out on a regular basis on a Monday. So hopefully I can get a bit done without getting interrupted too much. Now, if you are here, I do welcome you to the channel. Please consider hitting that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it, and that way you won't miss out on any future posts. So yeah, I have, as I said, I have started doing this on a new day, so I might be a little bit all over the shop at the moment, but I'm going to recap some of the things that have fallen into homework. Now, when I say homework, I've had a few questions about that. Homework is from a group that I joined this year called School of Magical Stitches and Literature, and they actually have what they call homework challenges that they set each week for us to do. So they'll give us a certain amount of prompts, and then we've got to try and finish our try to fit our charts to those prompts. So I've done well so far. I've managed to keep one of my goals for the year, which is stitch every day. I've also managed to get all my homework in. I also got all my extra credit in for January, because they give you extra credit, so that's extra tasks that you work on over the month instead of just a week. So they have weekly tasks and monthly tasks and also yearly tasks. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the yearly tasks, so whether I actually do them or not, that's up in the air at the moment. But at the moment I'm just focusing on getting my weekly challenges done, and also working on the extra credit, which is our monthly challenges, and also reading the recommended book. So last month we read Kingdom Keepers, Disney After Dark, and this month we are reading the Villains book. So it's the story about the what's it called, the Fairest of All, and it's about the Wicked Witch. So or the Wicked Queen, sorry. So basically we are reading that. I've only just started that a couple of days ago. I think I've got almost through chapter 1. It is geared towards young adult, but I'm not opposed to reading young adult. Some of those books are pretty good, so I'm enjoying it so far. I really enjoyed the Kingdom Keepers, so I'm hoping that this one will be just as good. And it sort of gives the backstory of Snow White's stepmother, the Queen, and all the rest of it. So from what I can gather so far, so it's sort of, yeah, it's a little bit about her story, because you know, you don't always often hear the backstory of a villain, so this way we get to learn all about it. I'm not into Disney as much as some other people are. That's probably because of where I'm based. I'm in Australia, so Disney isn't, it's still, like, people like it, but it's not as big here. In my experience, it's not as big here. You know, like, I like watching Disney movies and stuff like that, but yeah, it's just, I'm not be all and end all, you know, I must go to Disneyland or anything like that. I do have friends that are like that. They've been over to the Disneyland and all that sort of stuff, and the Magic Kingdom, and all the, like, anything associated with Disney. But for myself personally, it's not a big thing in our household. So Although the kids have expressed some interest since they've been seeing these books floating around the house that they'd like to go. But, you know, hey, that's a trip of a lifetime for us because that's a lot of money to get a large family over there. All right, so not much in the way of life has happened. I only spoke to you last Wednesday, so this is pretty much a short week as far as the video goes. I still managed to get a lot of stitching in. And for those that are new here, I only stitch at night. So my goal for this year is to stitch every day, and I only stitch at night. I have had a couple of questions about, do I do anything else other than craft? No, not really. I have a young family. I have my granddaughter that lives with us, and she is 4. My family's philosophy is that we don't go out at night when we've got young children, because we're firm believers that they need their sleep and they need their rest just as much as an adult does, if not more. Makes for a much nicer toddler and also preschooler and even teenager at that, having them have enough sleep and all the rest of it. So they have their extracurricular activities, the older girls and stuff like that, but we do run a very early to bed household. So for me personally, I'm in bed by 9:30, 10:30 each night. I have moved it to 10:30 so I can spend a little bit more time with my husband, because he works late most afternoons with his job. So we don't tend to go out during the week at night, and even all on weekends we don't go out at night as well. It's just the way we've always run our household. We just like it that way. We spend a lot of time together. We don't necessarily go out to clubs and stuff like that. When we do anything, it's always as a family. My husband and I don't get the kids babysat by anybody or anything like that. So I'm relatively home every night of the week. And some people might think that that is a really sad existence, or whatever the case may be. We like it that way. It's just the way we've always done it. And yeah, I get a lot of crafting in that way. My husband watches a lot of crappy TV, like a lot of crappy TV. That's not my thing. He's not a reader or anything like that. He plays with cards during the day, and then at night when he comes home, he likes to unwind by watching really crappy TV. Just not my cup of tea at all. Sometimes he'll watch something really good and I'll be in there watching it with him, but for the most part, I'm out cross-stitching every evening, or prior to doing cross-stitching, which I only got into last May. Like I'd seen cross-stitching before, but I'd learned how to do it at school, but I'd never actually picked it up as a hobby. And last May I picked it up as a hobby, and I've pretty much gone down the rabbit hole and just become obsessed with it. So I allocate 2 hours, a minimum of 2 hours every day, which is in the evening, to my cross-stitch. So during the day I do my quilting business and my sewing business and my custom orders and all that sort of stuff, and filming for the channel. And then at night I unwind with doing a little bit of cross stitch. And some people have also asked me about all the whips that I have going. How can I be unwinding when I have so much going on? To be honest, I have an attention span of a gnat. Okay, so I'm always going to be a person that's starting something new. I do finish them, and I've dedicated a video every Friday called Finish It Friday, and I utilize that video to finish all my quilting and sewing UFOs. And this year seen us got to the end of them, so we've started the new year off with new starts on that. But for cross stitching, there's always going to be works in progress for me. There's also going to be multiple things that I work on during the week. It just keeps the rotation going, and it works for me. It doesn't work for everybody else, for a lot of people it doesn't work for, but for me it works. I love it because I'm working on something different every day. If I feel very passionate about something, I will work on that more. I thought last year I was getting a lot of stitches in. I was sadly mistaken, because this year, as I said, I started doing these the challenge group for School of Magical Stitches. I'm in semi-sane and I'm also in full coverage fanatics and all that sort of stuff, but I'm not doing any of their challenges. I sort of lurk in those groups and just see what's going on, and a lot of the charts in there sort of enable me to see how they progress and all that sort of stuff. So and I have been known to buy a few things that I've seen in there. So I sort of just work on what I want to work on. But as I said, last year I thought I was getting a lot of stitches in, and I did have a few whips going on, but this year, January and February, has seen me do a lot of new starts. That was always going to be the case. It was always my plan to have January and February for a new starts, because I had a lot of magazines here. I've got I got the Just Cross Stitch subscription for a year, and that gave me a whole heap of back issues as well. And I also joined, and these are just digital ones. I also did, what's it called? Cross Stitch Crazy. I did that one as well, and that has given me a whole ton of back issues from like 2015 right back to 2012, I think. So I've got all those. And I also, last year I purchased, I think it was around August I purchased it. I'd have to go back through my Flosstube and see when I did, but Punch Needle and Primitive Stitcher, I think it's called. I got the digital subscription for that, and that I got all the back issues for that, because this year I want to try Punch Needle as well. So I'm pretty excited about that, although I'm a little bit apprehensive. So I'm in the process of getting all the equipment for that and learning how to do it and all the rest of it before I tackle it. It seems to be a little bit different than cross stitch. Cross stitch was fairly easy for me to learn. There was a lot of information out there. So if anybody knows of any really good YouTube tutorials on how to do punch needle, by all means leave it down in the comments for me. Leave the link there so I can go over and have a look. I've found a couple that are probably the more popular ones, but I like to look at a whole different variety of stuff before I start doing something, especially if I've never done it before, and just trying to find out the equipment and all that sort of stuff. So I do have a floor hoop that I'm going to be using for that, and I understand that you've got to have good tension on it and all that sort of stuff. So and I'm just looking at equipment as in the way of needles. So if anybody's got who does punch needle and has got a good recommendation for the needles or where to get them from here in Australia, or even in the US, just leave a link down below or a comment down below, and I can go and research that a little bit more, because I'm still a little bit confused about the needles and what's the best way to go, because everybody has their own opinion about it. So I'd like some more opinions on that. So I've got all of those magazines, and at the end of last year I decided that I was going to predominantly work out of those magazines. There are a couple of charts that I am getting this year and that I did get at the end of the end of last year, so such as the Hawk Run Hollow. I'm actually getting the entire series of the Hawk Run, and I'm going to turn that into a big wall quilt, and so that is going to be a work in progress. And I've worked out with one of the Etsy stores that I buy from all the time, Journey of a Stitcher. I sent her a message and asked her if just once a month she could send me a custom order for one of the Hawk Run hollows, and she was happy to oblige me in that, and I've just paid for the Halloween one, so that will be coming in the next week or so. I got the dispatch order on the weekend, so that's obviously going out either today, and so I should have that by the end of the week, so I should be able to show you that next week. And that's all I've really purchased. I've got a couple of online things. So I got is it Michelle Bendy Stitches? I got her, and I'll put a picture up here of it. I got the her charity stitch, and for the life of me I cannot remember the name of it, but this is the image of it, and I'll put a link down below where you can get that. I'm not sure at the time of recording if it's still available as a charity one, but I purchased that because I felt it was a good cause. What else did I purchase this week? I think that's all I got in the way of purchasing this week. So it was just basically online orders, so they haven't come in yet, although I do have the download for Bendy Stitches, so, and that's just an Etsy download, so that was nice and easy. Just went over to her store, and it did take me a little while to get it. Like, I'd seen a few Flosstubers had mentioned it, but the links weren't down below. It just said what it was, so it took me a little while to find it, but I eventually did find it. I found it on Instagram, so that was good. So it's fairly early in the morning here, so I'm still having my morning coffee, so excuse me for that. All right, so we're just going to get stuck in what I did for my whips this week. So as I said, I've got a lot of whips going on and all the rest of it, and that might be a little bit of overwhelming for some people, and of course for some people a little bit of anxiety. For me personally it doesn't, and I'm starting now to get a lot of things coming out of the magazines and everything that I've bought because of the prompts. I can go back through and have a look, so I've been having a lot of fun doing that. The prompt was for one of last week's homework was something that had beads on it, and also something that had the color red. Now, lucky for me, I was going through some back issues of the the Cross Stitch Crazy, not the Just Cross Stitch Crazy, which is an English magazine, and it was the Christmas issue from 2015, and it had a chart in there called Angelic Beauty, and it had beads on it, and it also had some specialty stitches. So the reason that I'm going to show you this again is because I've actually learnt that these are 3/4 stitches. I wasn't sure what they were called, whether they were half stitches, quarter stitches, or whatever, but they're actually a 3/4 stitch. So basically you're doing a full leg of the cross, and then you're doing half of the leg of the other one, which is giving half of that little square on your Ada completely covered. So you can see here, just where my fingernail is, that's what the stitch looks like. Now I've used that stitch down in here to create this cross, and there is a few of these throughout the pattern, and all these little white dots here are actually going to be a metallic, and then in the center of these little crosses is the bead, and then on her skirt there is some beading as well. So you can see from the picture up below, it's not something sorry, the picture just here, it's not something that I would normally do, but I'm really happy that it as is in my whips now, because it's going to give me the opportunity to work with beads and also work with some specialty stitches, because most of the charts that I've done, apart from my little mushroom when I first started back in May, all of them have just had crosses. There's not been any half crosses, like half stitches or 3/4 stitches. The harvest one that I started, which is still in my whips, and I haven't worked on in a while because it hasn't fitted any of the prompts this year. That's got some is it Smyrna crosses, I think it's called. That's got some Smyrnas in it, which I really like doing. They're quite nice. And I'll put a picture up here of what a Smyrna looks like. It's a very primitive picture, but it's a picture nonetheless, and that's what a Smyrna's looks like. And I've done them in the harvest one, and I really like them, but I'm really excited that this one's got the Angelic Beauty's got it's got back stitching in it, it's got the beading in it, and it's also got some specialty stitches in it, and it also is using metallic as well, which is something that I haven't done yet. So I'm on the hunt to learn about using metallics, because from what I've heard from a lot of people, it's not the easiest thing to work with. So I'm on a mission now to learn how to work with them and make them a little bit more effective, and learning by other people's mistakes or errors or what they feel is a mistake. So I'm pretty excited about that one, and I'm actually going to be working on this one a little bit for this week as well, just to get some more stitches into it. And hopefully this will be finished soon by Christmas. I'm thinking of just actually framing this one, because it's, as I said, it's not something that I normally work on. But Mia has been coming out and saying to me that she really likes it when she's seen it there. So I got a little over 200 stitches in that one, and this week it's going to get some more stitching in it with any luck. And it's sort of a focus piece for the week, but not a focus piece. It's just something that I'd like to put a few stitches in. So if I've got a spare half an hour or whatever, I might put a couple of stitches in. And it's amazing how many stitches you can actually get into something when you only put 30 minutes time down for it, and then you get a lot of stitches in. So all right, so after I filmed last week with Wednesday, I had a few prompts, and I've just got them all here, so just bear with me for a moment. So I worked on the Pina Colada one, and I've just put an image up here of the cover chart for it, because again, this one's out of a magazine, and I had everything that I needed for this particular one here. So I had the black Ada, and I had all the floss here, so I thought it was a really good one to use for last week. I had started it as a new start on the 29th of January, as a leap year start. So the 29th of every month I'll actually work on this particular one, but I also was able to manage to slot it into a couple of prompts last week. So one of the prompts was let me just look here. The king and queen have fabulous meals together. Stitch on something that has a food or a drink in it that you would not eat. Now, I do not like rum. not even a little bit. So basically this has rum in it, and that's why I stitched on it. So you can see there, it's the recipe for a pina colada. And I talked a little bit about this last week because it was a new start, and I talked about working with black in a Q-snap, how it does make the stitch, if you're an in-hand stitcher and you're working on black and you're working with light colors or white or anything like that, working in the Q-snap actually makes it a lot easier to stitch on a dark fabric, because I have the light behind it and I have a sheet of paper or a white cloth or something behind it. So as opposed to, as I said last week, as opposed to having the light shining directly over it, with me it gives a little bit of a glare off the black. Whereas if I have it sort of in front of me and shining behind it, and you could probably see that you can see the holes behind, so you should be able to see my hand there because I can see that on camera. So basically with the white sheet of paper and the light behind it, the light shines through those holes and makes the holes easier to see. This is a 14 count, so that's why you can see it quite clearly at the moment, whereas with the higher counts you can still see, and I've done it with 16, 18 and a 28 count one as well, or 32, one of those two, and it works exactly the same way. The holes are just a little bit smaller. So Tia from Calm Creations, she sent through a picture. Now I've actually done a couple of things with this one just to show the difference, and I don't know whether you'll actually see it, so I'm going to put a picture up here with a circle around where you can see where I've done stitching in hand. Okay, now and I'll just point to it. Just in here I have done stitching in hand, so the stitches look a little bit messy because it's a lighter color. And then you can see the top and the bottom I've used a scroll frame and also a Q-snap, and you can see that those stitches look so much better. I'm not sure, 100% sure if that is actually picking up on camera, but you can see from the picture where I've circled, so you can see the difference. Okay, so down the bottom here has been, this part up here was a bit of Q-snap. This one's a bit of Q-snap. This bottom piece here and this from this up is actually so the glass bit, and this bit down here and that up is in the scroll frame. So it looks very similar to the Q-snap. So having that tension on the black and not having it in hand, it has made it a lot better for stitching. And as I have, even when I'm in hand, if my stitches start to twist or anything like that, I generally railroad for a couple of stitches, and then that straightens them out for a few stitches. Then I'll railroad for a couple, and they usually sit flat. Now with all my dark colors, it doesn't look this messy. It looks really neat. Whereas, and that was also journey stitching in there as well. So I'm definitely, as I'm learning, I'm definitely preferring the full cross method. So these are full crosses, one cross at a time, and I'm definitely liking that style a bit better. I still do stitch in hand with all my dark colors and stuff like that and have no issue with that, but on the black and with my white, I'm preferring to have it in a Q-snap or a hoop. Hoop is my favorite preference, but for this one I'm actually using the Q-snap. So I hope that makes sense and you can actually see the difference. Like it's almost, I almost want to pull everything out that I've done in hand. Like some of the stitches are fine and some of the stitches are not so fine. But I'm not going to, because I'm just going to leave it as a reminder of where I've come in my stitching journey, if that makes any sense. So I ended up in that one, in that particular one, I ended up getting 411 stitches during the week into this. So I'm just here, I'm coming down to the bottom of the glass, and then there'll be like the actual bottom of the glass. So this is the drink part. It goes down to about here, and then I'll have the stem of the glass going down, and then I've got the umbrella and straw, and then the recipe and all the rest of it. So I used this for 2 prompts this week. As I said, I used it for something that I wouldn't eat or drink, and that is rum. Long story, but I don't like rum. And the other one was for it had to have a flower on it, and you can see it's got a hibiscus flower on it. So I had to stitch 200 stitches for the flower and 100 stitches for what I don't like. And then I also used it for our bonus one, and so I had to stitch something that started with R, and of course rum, and it's a recipe, so I had to get exactly 111 stitches in, so I did that as well. So a total of 411 stitches on that one. While I'm talking about stitches and stitch count and all the rest of it, I actually had a question from a viewer, and they asked me why I count stitches. So for those that are regulars here, you already know I'm counting the stitches because that's what the requirement is for the challenge groups. And for those that aren't or don't know that what I'm doing, each challenge has a particular amount of stitches. So I said that I stitched 411 on that particular one. Two of the prompts had 100 stitches I had to stitch. One was 111, one was 100, and the other prompt was 200. So I managed to use it for 3 prompts out of the homework. And that's sort of what I aim for each week, trying to get as many prompts into one chart as possible. Sometimes it doesn't work and you have to stitch all the things. But as I said, I managed to get 3 of those into that one. Okay, so the next one for homework was the Halloween Quaker, and that's the image there. I had 2 prompts that I used this for. One was for the moon, so M for Martha, and I chose my moon in that. I didn't have to stitch on the actual moon, just a chart that had something that started with M, so I went with that one. And also for the Queen's Nightmares. So we had to stitch on a project that for the Queen's Nightmares, stitch 200 stitches on a project that gives you nightmares. Post the cover at the beginning and explain. So I stitched on the Halloween Quaker because it has spiders in it, and I hate spiders. They give me nightmares every time I see a spider, and then I'll have a bad dream about a spider. That's how ridiculous that is. So I stitched on the Halloween Quaker for that one. So we got 311 stitches into that. So you can see here that I've started up on this particular one here, and so that's still got a lot to go. Like it comes down to here, and this is the edge of page 1 that you can see there. So I'm right at the edge, so I'll be starting to go on to page 2 soon, and that's still got at least another 200 stitches to go in that to finish the motif off. And then there's a part of the moon is also there, so I'll just fold that in half so I can hold it a bit better. So coming down here, there'll be part of the moon. There's a bit of the witch's broom that comes into this one, and underneath here there's a couple of spiders that I have to stitch on. Now again, I don't have to actually stitch on the thing that gives me nightmares. It was just stitch on a chart that has something, so that's why I stitched on this. This week is I will actually have to, this coming week, we've already received our homework. We got that yesterday, and that starts this afternoon for us, which is Monday. So I actually have to stitch on something that has particular prompts in it this time. So one of them is I have to stitch on a face, and I actually have to stitch on the face. So yeah, so we haven't had that yet, and this is the first time, and I thought, oh god, what am I going to stitch on? And then I found that I have already got some whips that I can stitch on a face. So, and it doesn't have to be human, it can be animal or human. But I've had a lot of comments about this Halloween Quaker. This is a Leela Studios design, and it's called Halloween Quaker, and I will leave a link down below where you can get that. This is fast becoming a very popular piece, because this is actually one of my focus pieces this year. So I am fitting this into as many prompts as I possibly can for this one. So it's getting a lot of love, and it will probably get some more love this week as well. It's also being used for my extra credit this month. It actually fits 3 of the prompts for that. So I'm pretty excited that I will definitely by the end of the month be on a new page. So I will definitely have a page finish. But yeah, I'm getting a lot of comments. A lot of people are saying that they're getting the chart. A few people have already purchased the chart. So yeah, I'm really happy that everybody's enjoying seeing the progress on it. And it is actually one of my favorite charts at the moment. So I'm really happy that it's getting a lot of love as well. All right. So that, as I said, is my focus piece. I want to actually have that finished by October the 31st, or as close as I possibly can get it. But as I said, I am using it for as many prompts as I can, and so far I have managed to use it every single week, whether it be for extra credit or for a homework. So for February, it actually fits 3 of the prompts, which is really good because it has a bird on it, and I can't remember the rest of them, but as I do them for extra credit, I will explain why I've done it for that week. So that I got that in, and then the next one that I worked on was Hello Pumpkin for homework, and this was a bonus one. So we had to stitch L for Lucinda, and I had to stitch 111 stitches on this one, and yes, I did that on Friday, and I put some more stitches into the tree. Now this one, I wanted to actually have 411 stitches on it. I just did not get time to do that. I just, work stuff got in the way and all the rest of it. So I'm coming down to the bottom of the tree now, and this is where so it's starting to edge in. It looks a little bit like a really weird tree at the moment. That's because pumpkins come into it, and you can see from the picture it's got all the stuff happening up in the top part of the tree. And I stitched this one for Lucinda and L, so that got 111 stitches in it. Not as much as I would have liked, but this is actually just become this is February's focus piece. I actually have 2 pieces for February that I'm focusing on, so I'm trying to fit this one into as many prompts as possible. I've managed to fit it into 1 prompt for last week, and I've also managed to fit it into 1 February extra credit. So, and then I just sort of, I do a couple of, on Sundays I work on my hate, and I sometimes get a little bit bored of just doing the same color, so I swap out and do a couple of stitches on that. And I think I actually put, I think I put a couple of stitches up in the fox yesterday. No, actually on Saturday I actually put a couple of stitches, not too much to write home about or even write down about. So yeah, so that was that one. And then that was it. I was finished homework. And then we had some team building challenges. So the team building challenges in the group are for opening parts of the park and all the rest of it. And as I said, I don't really know much about Magic Kingdom or Disneyland or Disney World or any of those sort of things, but we get different parts of the park that we have to open. So this week it was so we're still working on Cinderella's castle, and I think I've put nearly 5,000 stitches into Cinderella's castle. I've put all my bonuses onto that as well, because we get bonus points for things. And we had to work on Hollywood Boulevard and Grand Avenue, I think it was. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we had to put 100 stitches into each of those to earn our badge. I did that. What I used was my other focus piece for February, which is my Quilter's Cottage. So there's the cover picture there, and this is what I've done. So as you can see, I've changed it. I have turned it into my business page, and I'm working on the quilt. So I had a couple of weeks ago worked on the quilt and put all the white in, so I just did all the fill in, and I used those stitches for those 2 team building prompts. And I've got 1 more quilt to do and a little bit more fill in and the binding on that one that I'm working on now, and a couple of flowers, and then this one will be finished. So my goal for the Quilter's Cottage is to actually have that finished by the end of the month, because I'm going to turn it into a mini quilt, and I've got to get designing the outside of it. So I'm going to put some blocks around the outside and have it hanging up in my studio. And I didn't really want to do the alphabet, so Tia from Calm Creations gave me the idea of using my business name, and that was the first time that I'd ever really changed anything up on a chart or anything like that, because I'm still relatively new to that sort of stuff, but I'm happy with how it's turned out. And yeah, so this is my my Saturday piece at the moment. So on Saturdays I work on things that I want to get finished, or they're my focus piece or stuff like that. This coming week for homework, this is actually going to slot into homework, and hopefully that will get me a little bit closer. So I will actually work on this coming week. I will work on this twice. I will work on it once for homework, and then I will work on it as my focus piece on Saturday to get that done. And if I get it finished this week, you will see it next week. But I still have a lot to do. Like one of those little quilts there, they have 700, believe it or not, those little quilts have about 700, and I think I counted it up to 780 or 785 stitches in them. So they're not a small stitch by any means, and that takes a little while, especially when you've got to swap colors out and stuff like that. But I'm just using whatever colors I had here on hand in my Cosmo threads, because when I started this I didn't have many threads because it was one of the other ones that I got very early on in the piece. So I want to get that done and dusted and out of the way. And then Sunday rolled around, and for those that are new here, Sunday is the day that I work on my full coverage pieces, and I have 2 full coverage pieces going at the moment, and I alternate between the 2. So last week I worked on Hubble Bubble, which has got 3 cats in it at a cauldron, and there's some bubbles floating around. And this week I worked on Autumn Queen, which you can see here. These pieces are going to take me 10 years, maybe longer, to do. They're not something that I'm rushing. They're not something that I work on all the time. And they're just ones that I work on every Sunday. But Sundays, generally, I don't go anywhere, and the family just stays at home. We don't go out or anything like that. Although yesterday, the older girls went out with their friends to see a movie with their dad. So they went and did that over at Toowoomba, and Mia and I just stayed home while they went and done that, because Mia couldn't go to the movie. It was an MA movie, so she couldn't go to it, and I wasn't really interested in seeing the movie, so I'll just wait for it to come on Netflix and see it then. So basically I worked on this yesterday. I didn't get as many stitches as I wanted to get in yesterday. Mia and I sat down and we had a really nice day. We just sort of cruised around the house. I didn't worry about doing any housework. She was playing with some of her toys. We were sitting there chit-chatting together. We were talking about stitching. We were watching a movie. Then we had a nap together. Who doesn't love a good Sunday afternoon nap? And we just had a really casual day. And then they didn't get home until after dark, so they were gone from pretty early in the morning. I still managed to get 421 stitches in it. And I just predominantly worked with black, so it's pretty boring. But I got all this done yesterday. So when I started, it was just that rectangle there. So I got all of that piece done. I would have liked to have got all the way down, but as I said, I was just having a really good day with Mia, and we just cruised along, and it's neither here nor there. I might get some more in this week, but it's highly unlikely. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it's turning out. I'm really enjoying it. I'm using Pattern Keeper, which is making it super easy to count and keep a track of everything. Yeah, and I'm happy with the progress. A little bit each week, that's fine. But as I said, I'm alternating between the 2. My eldest daughter has been eyeing this off, so I'm thinking that once it starts getting a little bit past this and starts to get a little bit heavier, I'll end up putting it in the scroll frame that I've got. And I'm thinking that she might end up coming out and starting to help. And because the scroll frame is a floor frame, we can be working in 2 different parts of the chart. And she'll be using Pattern Keeper because I've got it on a couple of different devices. So as well. So that's sort of the plan, to sort of encourage them to do it. And also my 13-year-old has been she loves cats. She's been eyeing off the cat one. And again, that's another big piece too that we could both sit at and do at the same time. So hopefully in time they'll see me doing it, and they'll want to join in, and we'll get a little bit more done. So the more people on it, the better, I guess. It'll get done a little bit quicker. But they are all the pieces that I have worked on up until yesterday. I've managed to get a fair amount of stitches in, so I think when I counted it up on Sunday morning, I was at about 3,000 stitches. It wasn't as many as previous weeks, but I had a few things on last week. I had a couple of meetings and stuff like that, so that always makes my day job go into my night time. And then there's been a couple of days where I was just really tired and I didn't put in as many stitches or whatever, just done the basics. So, but that's okay, that is fine. So I have been getting a few questions about my hade. There was a question from Sarah. She asked me if I started in the middle or if I started in the top corner. I'm using Pattern Keeper, so it makes it really, and it's a full coverage. So I just started up in the top corner. That seems to be the general place that most people start. To start in the center when you've got 72 pages, I think there is in that pattern. Like there's a lot of pages in that pattern because it's a full, it's a max colors one. Or 64 pages or something. There's a lot of pages anyway. I will verify how many pages is in it. I just didn't feel confident enough being my first one to try and work out where the middle was. I know that obviously there would be different markings and stuff to show it. I find it easier for all of my stitching to start up in that top left corner, and I can count across, and I use my friction pen to mark to make sure that I'm counting right and all that sort of stuff, so I don't have an issue with that. And as I said, with Pattern Keeper and a full coverage, like the whole piece is covered, and I've worked out my fabric using different apps and stuff like that on what size my canvas had to be, and I've only got, I think, a 3-inch border going all the way around it, and I've worked all that out. So I know how big my fabric had to be. I know that I'm fine to start there, and I've got that 3-inch leeway. So even if I've miscalculated by an inch, I'm still going to have 2 inches to finish it. So I am really confident that I'm fine to start that. So a few people were concerned that, I don't know if they've done full coverage or not, but a few people had asked me if I had started in the middle or up in the top, because they felt that it's hard to count that way. But with Pattern Keeper, if you haven't tried Pattern Keeper and you've got an Android device, I recommend that you get it for your full coverages, because it is a game changer. Like I know that I haven't done a full coverage on paper, but I've done other ones on paper, and I'm just loving the Pattern Keeper, because I can visually see the chart stitched out in front of me. But when I look at the Pattern Keeper, I'm looking at the exact same thing. So as soon as I'm out by anything, or I've put an extra stitch in somewhere, you can visually see it. And I am a person that can see patterns very clearly in things, so I can look at something and like with quilts and stuff like that, I can disassemble that quilt and put it back together all in my mind, if that makes any sense. And it's working the same way with Pattern Keeper as well. So anything that I stitch, I can pull apart and put back together in my mind, and I can see it in both areas, and I can pick up the mistakes pretty quickly. I think I made one mistake, and it was one stitch that was a different color in a sea of black. I didn't worry about pulling it out because it was like so dark you couldn't tell whether it was black or a different color, and it was just a random pixel in the top of a sea of black. Like out of 400 stitches, there was this one stitch. I didn't worry about it. It's up in that border, and I know that I check after each row. I double check that I've actually done it, and I can do that at a glance because I'm working with a row of 10. So I'm working in a square sort of thing, and I move across. Sometimes I'll go down a little bit further. So like yesterday, the black went down into the next row of 10, but it was only 2 rows and 2 little ones on either side. So I just put them in, and I can see that. I can visually see it, that it's matching up with what's on my canvas and what's on the Pattern Keeper. So hopefully that answers your question and why I do it that way. The other one was... I talked about a couple of weeks ago when I had a finish on Grandma's quilt from the Farmhouse Christmas series that I wasn't real happy with my fabric choice and the white stitching out. I had a couple of suggestions that I could fill in that area from the edge to the white, and that would make it more prominent. I'm not going to do that because that's just not what the pattern, I think that would make it look a little bit weird, so I'm not going to do that. But thank you very much for the suggestions on that. I'm going to continue on with that, and I looked a little bit closer at it after I filmed it. While I wasn't happy with it while I was stitching, now that it's finished and when it gets into a fully finished piece, I think it's going to be fine. It's possibly just the lighting and all the rest of it, and I went back and watched the video and I could actually see it quite clearly, and when I hold it from at a distance, I can see the white. So it's not as bad as what I thought it was. It was just my general opinion of that. But thank you very much for all the suggestions. I've written down most of them because, I mean, even if I don't use it for that one, it might come in handy for something else. The other one was on my Hade. Another question on that was when I got the kitted up one, which was the Autumn Queen, that came fully kitted. They asked if it was kitted with DMC. According to the website, it's all kitted with DMC. So I bought their floss kit, or what they call a material pack, and that comes with the material that I'm stitching on and also all the flosses. And yes, as far as I am aware, according to their website, it is all DMC, and it has the same numbers as DMC. So to that, I'm going to say yes. If anybody knows any different, by all means leave a comment down below. But according to their website, yes, it is all DMC. The other one was, what size hoop do I use? For cross stitching, I don't really use a hoop. As I said, for the black stitch, I'm using the Q-snap, and I use a little hoop for my full coverage piece. It's just because it's such a big piece of fabric, and I was recommended to use a hoop because this had specialty stitches in it. So that's why that one's in a hoop. Occasionally, if my hands get a little bit tired, I might, or the fabric moves around a little bit, I might put it in a hoop. So occasionally you'll see my Halloween Quaker in a hoop, because the fabric is really soft, and sometimes I don't know, maybe my hands are a little bit extra dry or something. It gets a little bit slippery in my hands. So I just put it in a hoop for a couple of hours all for that stitch. Basically, I do most of my stitching in hand, but I find that I like doing one stitch at a time. So, and because a lot of the charts that I'm doing also have the fancy floss in them, so you need to do one cross at a time, or otherwise you lose that variegation. The other question was what's my favorite fabric? I don't actually have a favorite fabric, but if I had to choose, I would probably choose 28 count or 32 count in an even weave. But I'm not a fabric snob. I'll stitch on anything as long as it looks good. So yeah, I don't and sometimes I'll just stitch on what they call for, because I mean, the designers have designed it, they've had it stitched on a particular thing, and at the end of the day, that's what's appealing to you when you're buying the chart and all the rest of it. So a lot of the time I will actually just stitch on what it's called for, although I do balk at 36 count and above. I have stitched on 32 count, but 36, I'm going to be trying 36 count. There's a piece that I want to do for a box, and 36 count is what's going to work for that. So I may have a different opinion in a couple of weeks time, because I'm going to be trying some different fabrics. I'm a little bit scared, but from what I've gone from 14 count, and I've slowly been progressively going up in the different counts just to give them a try. I mean, there's people out there that say this and that about different things. I personally, I like the 28 count. That's the only piece that I've got out at the moment. That's a 28 count. I like the size of the stitches on it. I like that it's, and this is an even weave. I believe I got this from, it's a Monaco, and I think I got it from 123 Stitch from memory. I like how the stitches look. I like to stitch on it, so if I had to choose, I'd probably say that would be my fabric of choice. Not necessarily Monaco. Monaco's a little bit stiffer than the other ones. I do like it to be a little bit softer. My Halloween Quaker is a 28 count Quaker cloth even weave, so that one's nice. A lot of people are a bit about Ada and stuff like that, but sometimes it's just nice to stitch something on Ada, and I don't find any problem with that at all. As I said, I'm not a fabric snob. I'll stitch on anything. So hopefully that's answered some of your questions on that. The other question I got was, I was talking about the flosses that I've used in my Halloween Quaker. I've used the called for colors, and someone said that they would like to see them because they're considering kitting it out themselves, but they wanted to see the fancy flosses that I'm using. So hopefully you can see these. So you've got the orange, and these are all classic color works. Okay, so the purple is smoke. The pinks, so you've got like a peachy pink and a light pink there, so you can see that there. You've got like a gingerbread sort of color and honeycomb sort of color. You've got that orange, you've got that darker purple, and then you've got that green. The green's called frog legs. The darker purple is called rainy day, so that one there's rainy day. The white one is bamboo. The orange one is, let me just try and separate these, they're not playing nice at the moment, is lobster claw. Your pinks are pink posy and cobbler peach, so that's like a peachy sort of color. That's more of a pinky color. Then you've got sassy brass, which is this brassy one here, and then you've got gingerbread, and then this one here is honeycomb. Okay, and then you've got your raven, you've got black coffee, and what's the other one? 310 in DMC, and then blackbird in the other one. So they are the colors that I'm using in it. They were the called for colors, and Nicole from Journey of a Stitcher, if you're here in Australia, has the Weeks Dye Works, and she just put the kit together for me. I just said I want the ones that are in that, and she put it all together for me and sent them out. So I'm using all the called for colors on that, and including the 310 DMC. So hopefully that helps you with your decision on purchasing that. They're just beautiful to work with, but again, I'm just doing one cross at a time because they are a variegated thread, and you can see the difference, like when they're, so you can see this one here is the black coffee, and then this is the blackbird over here, and then that's the 310 DMC in that one, and this little motif over here. So you can actually see the difference, and then basically it's just got some accents in it with the lobster claw and the pinks, and then you've got random the random purple ones. So that there is called, that purple there is called smoke, and that one there, that darker purple, is called rainy days. And you can see there that the hat, because I've just done one cross at a time and I've been working backwards and forwards, you can see that it's got a variegation in it, and that's what I like about those, and that's what I sort of wanted to go for. I really liked the look of the chart. So as I said, this is a 28 count Quaker cloth, it's called, and it doesn't have a color on the package or anything. That's just all it says, but it's an even weave. So, and you can see it's sort of a greeny color, but I just love it. It just suits it so well. So all right, so moving on to haul. I actually didn't get any haul this week, as I said, except for the Bendy Stitches one, and I've got some other stuff coming. So when they come in, well, you've seen the instant download one, but when the Halloween Quaker Fire Hawk Run Hollow comes in, I'll obviously show you that. But I did get a rack this week, a random act of kindness, stitchy kindness, and this has come from all the way from the United States, from Rebecca, and I had been eyeing off her piece. She'd been stitching this over the Christmas break. She started it for our 12 days of Christmas, and I just fell in love with it, and it was absolutely beautiful. She stitched it so quickly, like considering the size of it. It's 278 wide by 263. It is in French, I believe. And it is just an absolute gorgeous. It's called Christmas Village, and there is a website, and I'll leave the website down below for you, so you can go over and suss that out. But I just love it, and she sent it to me, so I was absolutely blown away that she sent it to me. So this now I'm going to I've got all my flosses together, because I've got the full kit of the DMC, but in CXC. I'll use that. So I'm just going to grab my fabric for it. I've just got to decide what I'm going to do. I'll get that a little bit closer, but how cute is that? I just love it. It's a Christmas Village. It sort of reminds me a little bit of a Prairie School one, I guess, but it's got it's got tons of stuff in it. It's got Santas in it, it's got houses in it, it's got a ton of snow in it, it's got the sleigh and all the rest of it. So I'm probably not going to start that this week because I want to make sure I get the right fabric for it. And it's even got like charms and stuff on it, like up the top here it's got some charms, and I actually have some snowflake charms here, so I can actually add them onto that as well. I'm super excited to get this started now. Yeah, it's just got so much stuff in it. Like there's hotels, there's all sorts of stuff in it. There's animals, and there's even on this particular one there is actually a moose button. I don't know if you can see that there. I might have to find a clearer picture of it, but yeah, that there is a moose button. How cute is that? But so thank you so much, Rebecca, for sending that through to me. I was pleasantly surprised when I opened the mail on Friday afternoon. I got squeals of delight, actually, to be honest. I'm like, so I'm really happy about getting that, and I really do appreciate you sending it all the way from the United States to me. I really do love it, and I'm looking forward to stitching it. So you'll have to keep an eye out in the Facebook group and over on Instagram, and I'll let you know through Flosstube when I do start it. I probably won't stitch it as quick as you did, though. You did stitch that very, very quickly. So yeah, so thank you so much for sending that to me. I really do appreciate it, and I love it. I really do. You know that I love it because I've oohed and ahed over your stitch for the last couple of months with it. So yeah. All right, so the next thing that I need to mention is that we are starting at the end of the month, and I forgot to mention this last week, we're starting our autumn stitch along, which is, I'll put a picture up here. It is the Country Cottage Needleworks autumn chart, and that is starting on the 29th of February, and the hashtag for that, which will be along the bottom of the screen here, is DD's Autumn Sow. We're using autumn because we call it autumn here in Australia, and the chart is also called autumn as well. So as I said, it is Country Cottage Needleworks. I will put a link down below where you can get that from if you want to join along in the fun. We are stitching that up, and hopefully we get it done before winter rolls around, because that will be our next one after that. So I will leave a link down there for the winter chart as well. But for this month, and this is why I said sorry for getting that last one, for the rest of the month we actually have a giveaway, and we have the chart. It's Country Cottage Needleworks Autumn Seasonal Celebrations. We aren't kitting this up with any fabric or anything like that. It is wholly and solely just the chart that you're in the running for. So all you need to do for this is leave a comment down below. I want to stitch the autumn, because we do get people that don't actually cross stitch. So if you're, and they go into the draw as well if I don't know that you actually cross stitch. So put down below, I want to stitch autumn, or I love autumn. Put anything down below. This is open for the next couple of weeks, so I will draw this on the Monday closest to the 29th, and that way, or maybe even the day after the 29th if that's the case, it falls on a Monday or whatever. So basically all you need to do, as I said, is leave a comment down below. Say I want to stitch the autumn, or I love autumn. They will be the comments that I'm looking out for. Okay, and if you want to be in the draw, you need to comment down below. Okay, and you need to come back next week and comment again, and for every comment that you have on the underneath February's videos, you will get an entry into the draw. So if you come back and comment on every video from this one onwards until the end of February, and there's 3 videos that go up, you will get 3 entries into the draw. Okay, so just remember, don't mention giveaway. We don't want people just trolling YouTube looking for giveaways. Just say I want to stitch the autumn, or I love autumn, and they're the comments that I'm going to look out for, and one of the lucky viewers will actually get this chart to stitch with us. Now generally the sales go for the whole season. So for the calendar, according to the calendar, autumn starts on the 1st of March. That's the next season. I know it's not the equinox or anything like that, but 1st of March is when autumn starts, and then the 1st of June is when winter starts. So we've got from March to June to stitch this, so there's no rush whatsoever. And even if you don't get it done by the 1st of June, it doesn't matter, you can still stitch it. So yeah, so if you want to win that, don't forget, pop a comment down below, and every video gets you more entries into the competition. And we'll be starting that on the 29th. I will put up my first post over on Instagram and in the Facebook group. Alrighty. Well, that is about it for me this week. As I said, we have changed the day to a Monday. If you've made it this long and you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you very much for sticking around for the whole video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you've got any questions at all, by all means, please leave them in the comments down below, or alternatively, you can send me an email to askme.dds@gmail.com, and you can see that email address at the bottom of the screen right now, and it's also underneath. And don't forget to enter into our competition. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you all again next week. Bye for now.